I'm going to say that some of your work has a glitch aesthetic to it.
I love that effect.
Yeah.
That effect is something very signature for the digital world. It's the world that we live in, right? We see the glitch everywhere, and that's also the signature of what I'm doing. I love pixel. I love distortions. I love glitching, and I love the pixelate.
Good afternoon, morning, or evening, everybody out there, and welcome to another episode of the Design Exchange podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Grové, and with me, my very special guest, Tung Khi.
Yeah.
Known to some of you out there as Crazy Monkey. Can I say just Tung, or do I have to say Tung Khi?
It's just Tung, yeah.
Just Tung.
Tung is my real name.
All right. Tung is the founder of the Box Collective, which is I'm going to let you describe it. What is the Box Collective?
So the Box Collective is a creative visual studio. So we do every kind of visual for music festival, for corporate event, for art performance, and the visual is mean like whatever related to motion design, graphic design, and projection work like mapping or hologram. So mostly like that.
Yeah. How much of your work is done, like the deliverable product, the finished product, how much of that is delivered through projection versus LCD screens or I imagine if a venue hires you to create visuals that sometimes it's done through projection, sometimes it's done through LCD screens or...
That would be 50-50. It really depends on the brief from client. So sometimes they brief to do for just mapping, and sometimes they just want to do the simple motion design on LCD screen. But then our strongest ability is the VJing, which means like we mixing video on LCD screen. And that would be the most thing that we focus from the very beginning.
Right.
When
Did
we
you say
opened the
VJing?
box. VJing, yeah. VJ and VJing. VJing is more correct because some people are going to be like they're going to be misleading with VJ from MTV, for example. But then so we call it VJing for separate two different words.
Right. So what's the difference in the spelling? Because in MTV, VJ is just the letter V, the letter J.
Yeah, and here we call it VJing. It's with ing as the last part.
Oh, so VJing.
VJing.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I first met you, you were the creative director or an artistic director at...
I'm art director at Yan TV Vietnam.
How did you get from... how did you start working there? And then what was your journey from there to where you are now?
It's been a long time since I start my career. So I started everything as the illustrator. I'm doing a lot of freelancing illustration job until I moved to Saigon to work as the advertising agency. So I'm staying in advertising for 6 years until I moved to Yan TV. When I feel like when I work in advertising, I cannot handle my creative work 100%. So that's why I just decided to move to from below the line to from above the line to below the line. So I just handling the visual work more. So I just moved to Yan TV. Yeah.
Yeah, within those industries, what is the meaning of above the line and below the line?
So above the line is that term for advertising agency is when you mostly producing creative idea. Like you come up with a big idea for the whole advertising campaigns, or you only do the art directions. So for some people they feel good with that, But then for me, I want to, hand touch on most of what I'm doing. So I just feel like it's not enough for me. And when you feel it's not enough, then it will feel boring. You feel you want to get out. So I just moved to Yan TV to become the art director of the whole motion design team. So I can work with them. I can adding my art direction here and there, changing the color, and I'm staying Yan TV for 2 years.
The other thing that you were doing at around that time when I first met you, you were exhibiting in the Saigon art book.
Yeah, that's fun time.
That's
good time.
You were making a lot of paintings of flying penises. I can say that with a straight face. That's a motif that's come up again and again in your visual work. Mm-hmm. Another motif I've seen coming up in your work a lot is your own face, like kind of looking like a Buddha in some way.
Yeah, this is a really fun time to experimenting different kind of elements. So that element I use, the flying penises, and my Buddha head is from 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. And it's a time I want to experimenting something fun, something can make people smile, can make people laugh, and at the same time I can I can add in some crazy element on that. Yeah.
How about your use of color?
So I'm used to use a lot of color, like whatever color I'm have thinking in my head, I'm put into my artwork. But then recently I use less and less color. So I want to study from back to the beginning. I want to study about the shape, about the layout, about how the shape positioning first, and then color will be the later. So that's why my recent work is mostly black and white. Yeah, it's really different with what I'm doing 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay, please help me along your journey here from working as art director on the motion graphics team at Yan TV to being the head of the Box Collective. How did you make that transition from basically an employee to, I think, freelancer to eventually an established company?
It's not a smooth transition. I mean, like it had a lot of gap. I have to fill in when you're an employee, you have your stable income, you have your network, you have your coworker. But when you open something for your own, maybe you have to facing with loneliness for quite a long time. For me, it's a kind of 1 or 2 years. I'm working mostly alone. Because first is what I'm doing at that time is 6 years ago. I'm start doing VJing,
Right.
and I have to explain with most of the people I met about what I'm doing because they don't understand. But then when I have my luck is I have a lot of connection already before I stop working at Yan TV. When I moved to Box Collective, I already have some connection, and I keep introducing them about what I'm doing. So I get my first client for Box Collective is quite early. It's going, and I get more and more clients. So I'm doing website and stuff, and it's happened. So that transition took me for about 2 years.
I mean, how big is your team now? How many people are working with Box?
So my team is 15 people right now.
15 people?
Yeah, it's 15 people. And that's only for motion design. And for the financing and accounting, about four people more. Maybe in total will be nearly 20 people.
Wow.
Right now.
Do you include yourself in those 20?
No.
Okay. So with yourself, you're definitely at about 20 people. I'm kind of at a loss for words here because I supposed that you were about 5 people. and now here are 4 times larger than what my guess was.
In this room, it used to be my kind of first office. So you can see the Box Creative logo here and there as a door. But then now we moved our office to DC3, so it's a much bigger office. But then I keep all the logo here as a memory, and now it's not the Box Creative anymore, but just a box.
Just box.
Just box, yeah, because it's not the creative anymore. It's become the company with the whole structure and stuff. Yeah.
So what's the official? Because like on Vietnamese company registrations, the names can be very long.
Yeah.
So what's the official name?
The office name is in Vietnamese is Công ty trách nhiệm cổ phần hộp sưu tập. So it's like that's just Vietnamese translate for the box.
Just box.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the word box anywhere within that official company name?
So it's stock company. It's, box.
Okay.
Yeah. So we changed the name to just box.
Just box.
Yeah, not creative box, not collective box. It's just box.
I guess that probably works within Vietnam, but worldwide, there's box is probably a hard name to trademark.
Of course. Even when I'm sign up for the domains, it's some creative box and design box already there, like designbox.com or creativebox.tv.
Right.
So I still need to keep box creative, yeah, as a church name.
You'd almost think that .box could be a domain, a high-level domain name. Could be like monkey.box or whatever. All right, so just before we get any deeper into it, people want to check out some of the box, just some of box, the work of box. What's the Instagram? What's the website? Where could people go?
Also, we have a hot start. We have called box visuals, maybe box visual or box visuals with S.
Yeah.
So that's the hashtag we use a lot for, if we want to follow our work on Instagram. And also we have the website. It's called worldwideweb.theboxcollective.tv.
Okay.
So it will be our official website.
Theboxcollective.tv.
Theboxcollective.tv. So you can log in and you can see our blog and our latest work there.
Do you keep that pretty much up to date?
I just updated for this Lunar New Year when I have a lot of time.
Okay.
And the latest update is 2 years ago.
Before that, yeah.
Before that.
It's really hard as a... It's very hard as a creative to keep your portfolio up to date.
Yeah, you never have time. Never have time to do it. And
now with 20 people on staff, couldn't you have asked somebody to update the website?
Even the 20 people, I have to do it by myself because I know which is the best work and which is the best photo to put on there.
Okay.
I have to do it. And after 2 years, it's quite a lot of work. So I have to, collecting myself, which is the best and put it on the website and writing the description. Yeah. I wish I can, handle it to someone else, but I have to do it.
Are the descriptions in English or are they all in Vietnamese?
According to English.
Oh.
So we want to the people outside Vietnam to see that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your more recent works then, and of the company itself. You said you have motion. You guys are doing a lot of motion graphics?
Yeah, we have motion graphic and mostly motion graphic designer.
Okay.
And they also doing graphic design. They're also doing VJing, and some of the guy also can do sound designing.
So your typical clients, are they coming for you for different clients for different of those services, or are you providing all of those services for one client, or all of those skills are going into one final club installation or something like that?
So the client will, when they come to us, they will have, maybe they will handle everything to us. It depends on the brief. For now, we only focus on mostly designing. And sometimes if the client want to shooting something, we work with our supplier or our partner. But then I'm looking for to handle everything. Like, so we're providing one service to client in the future.
Do you have a typical client?
Yes, mostly from event company.
Okay.
Yeah, event companies they need a new idea for, for opening performance, for ceremony. So they come to us and they asking for that. They're asking for some new element for their performances, and sometimes we'll be the show director, or music video director. Yeah.
In some of the work I've seen you present before, there's an interactive element to it. Of course, if anybody's thinking about typical VJing, the interactive element might just be the VJ themselves, because at the event they're making decisions about which effect to apply or which video feed to cut to or which animation to cut to at that moment, or how they want to overlay and mix stuff. Some of that stuff I think is also driven by audio, like having it be responsive to the audio levels. Like every time there's a bass hit, then this thing comes up. But you've taken it definitely a step further, where you've used technologies like the Xbox Connect, the PrimeSense, radar sensors or whatever they are for I think creating some visuals, right? Like when you do clubs and stuff, how much of that is just pre-canned loops that are playing? Like if somebody wants just to have a permanent installation, or is there anything that's interactive with that?
It doesn't really depend on the brief, if they want to do a key moment for the opening something, the opening of the event, opening of the ceremony. So definitely we need to pre-render that. So before the safety, have to preparing a whole video, and here's a play button.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. But then for event experience, if they want to do something real time for people interactive there at the event, so we providing the interactive real time graphic solution for them. So that two things is different. They're not together. If you want to interactive something on the real time graphic, you expect something simple and fun. It's not like you want to tell in the story, you want to tell in that value, that number is different.
Okay, what's this? What's this here?
This is myself. So I do the 3D scan my body, and I put it into the 3D software and do some motion graphic on it. So this is a part of my installation. It's called the ownership zero. So I have this object into motion graphic video, and also this object 3D print outside. So you can see the different value between the real things and the virtual things. You can have the compare.
I'm going to say that some of your work has a glitch aesthetic to it. Would you agree or disagree with that?
The glitch? Glitch. Oh, yeah. I love that effect.
Yeah.
That effect is something, very signature for the digital world. This is the world that we live in, right? We see the glitch everywhere. When we have a glitch on our TV, we have see the glitch on our cell phone, and then we see the glitch on everywhere. So that's the signature. So I just love that effect.
I think you apply it sometimes in ways that are beyond what's typical. Like it's easy enough to have some kind of After Effects glitch plugin that just kind of, I don't know, does something like a square wave distortion on a visual and maybe separates the colors a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at this image here, it's kind of glitchy in a way that's not like that. It's not just that effect. It's kind of just glitchy by the technology of it itself, right? I mean, we got aliasing going around the edge, and I don't even know what's going on here. What's this?
So
big...
that's very interesting things about that effect you mentioned. As you can see here, we see it's very close distance for section, and then what you see is a pixel. So that's a real pixel of the projectors. It's like when you see the close to your monitor screen,
Right.
You will see that pixel, and that's also the signature of what I'm doing. I love pixel. I love distortions. I love glitching, and I love the pixelate.
So I mean, also you can see this is kind of very voxel-like. For those who are only listening to the podcast, what we're looking at on the wall behind us seems to be a 3D scan of a human torso, and it's being rendered. It's turning slowly, but there's a lot of imperfections in the way that it looks. If you think about a typical computer graphics, think about something like Toy Story, which is very smooth, very seamless, very perfect. What I think is interesting about your work, Tung, is that you celebrate the imperfections that the technology has. You some things that some people might fight against to try to smooth out and get a certain result, you seem to say, here's some technical limitations that the technology has, and I'm going to express those limitations fully, as opposed to trying to hide those limitations.
Yeah, that's another thought. I always interesting on how people react with what I'm doing, and because when I'm doing, I just not put a lot of thought on it. I just follow the concept and just do it. And sometimes we have an unexpected result, because what I'm doing is all computer generative work, so the result can be random. So as you can see here, the drawing is very random, and but then people, when they look at it, they see the random things, and they have a different thinking. So this is what I'm love about what I'm doing.
I'm going to ask a really out of the blue question here. Are you familiar by any chance with this man named Csuri?
Csuri?
Yeah.
No, not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
I recorded an interview with him a few years ago. I haven't edited it yet.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm going to include it in. I'm going to make a podcast episode out of it. Mm-hmm. He invented computer graphics and computer animation.
Wow.
And of all the artists that I'm personally aware of, I'm sure there's many I'm not aware of, but of all the ones I'm personally aware of, your work is like the most clearly the spiritual successor to his work. Mm-hmm. I think. I'll just show a little clip of one of his works right here, so people can compare. But I remember this series back when there was this bar called Cube.
The Cuba, yeah.
Not to be confused with Box. You did a piece of work similar to this, if not the same thing, where it was a street art illustration on the wall and then projection mapping that's overlaid,
Yeah, I miss that, man. The good thing about doing a mural and then doing a mapping on it is it's just pretty cool and fun. You're doing a mural, and at night you're doing your mapping on it. So you have twice the fun. But then the bad thing is after the event, they clean up the world.
Oh, well.
So it disappears forever. It's only a live in a video for now. And it's about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I'm doing that. Yeah, the funny thing is I went to the same location with a cube bar just last night. And now it's become the whole Vietnamese restaurant.
Okay.
It's like kind of people drinking beer and eating beef.
Does it still have a modern aesthetic, or did they change the?
They turn everything. It's become the Vietnamese restaurant, and it gives me the feeling of when you see your favorite place gone and become something else. You have the real feeling of your last city. Your city is not like that anymore. It's like your old Saigon is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saigon is not a good place to live if you value holding on to
The past.
the past.
Yeah.
Because it only takes a few months or for things to change so much that place that was your favorite place just has turned into something else completely different.
Maybe because I'm from Hanoi. So I have the feeling like that. I'm Hanoian. So yeah.
Can you contrast in as far as this topic goes? Can you contrast Hanoi and Saigon? Do restaurants or bars or art galleries, do these things change faster or slower in Hanoi than they do in Saigon?
Of course they're changing much slower.
Okay.
Because there is not a lot of bar and gallery in Hanoi. So they will be less competitive, and they can keep that place for quite a few years.
Yeah.
It's not compared to Saigon. If your bar is survive for 1 year, it's just a set, right? So, and of course, things is moving much slower in Hanoi. Yeah. So Hanoi is the place for the past, and the Saigon is always moving, always changing.
Does the ever moving, ever changing aspect of Saigon influence your work at all?
That's a good question. Yeah, I sometimes I feel like that. I feel the same when I moved to the city about 10 years ago, and also what I'm doing is it's changing follow that vibe of the city. So I'm moving from illustration to digital painting and to motion graphic and to visual art. So after it's 4 or 5 years. So I'm always hungry for the new element for my work, and I'm trying to mix everything together. So yeah.
Now that you're running a 20-person company, do you have time to explore your own personal work?
I think that I'm also luck that that's my my artistic artwork, my artistic feeling of the what I'm doing is a main factor of box. I mean, like what I'm doing for arts is also the value for the box.
Right.
Sometimes you're not getting there. Sometimes when you want to do something different than the daily commercial project, you have to try very hard. But I always balancing between what I'm doing for my artwork and what's box doing. So when people see what I'm doing for art project, they see the value for what box doing, and they contribute each other. Yeah.
Right. So clients are coming to Box because they want the Box signature style.
They want the artistic style of box. Yeah.
They're not going to come to you and ask for something that they could get at Ogilvy or,
They're not gonna come to box to ask something like something simple, and something that the thousand of other studio can do that. They come into box because they want to do something different, something unique, something have the artistic on it. That's what I'm really appreciate to have box with that spirit standing out on this market. Yeah.
Well, you are my hero in this regard. I had an aspiration for a long time that I wanted to create, a signature style where brands or, people who wanted work done would be like, we need that guy, we need those guys to come in. And I don't think I really ever, at least not yet, I haven't gotten to that point. So props to you. Props to you for actually making that happen. I kind of want to get back to this idea of running a 20-person company. How did the scaling end up happening? How do you know when you need to hire another person? And because the more people you have on your team, if you don't get a project the next month, now you're burning money, right? So
yeah, of course, that's a business question. When you're handling 5 people in your team, it's different. But then when you have more than 10 people in your team, you need the layout for your whole company. You need to put your the people there and organizing everything, and you cannot do it that alone. You need someone like a business partner to help you on that. So that's why when I inviting another business partner into my company, and he start to organize that for me. So I'm still working as the creative mind for Box. But then the other people like him and the account manager gonna be working direct with the team. And I think for some kind of the studio that I'm doing right now, the most important thing is you have to create something for people to believe in, and that we're gonna be connect them together. With Box, I believe that we have the value for people who want to do something new for their project, for their portfolio, and that will be connect them together.
So where do your staff typically come from? What's their background?
So they come from very different background, but then mostly they come from the graphic design background, because I think that's the most important things. You have to know how to design first before you do anything. They will from the background of architecture. They from some guy from motion graphics school, but some guy from a fine art school, and some guy from whatever school, I don't know.
Yeah.
But so some people, they follow me from a very beginning of the Box. It's called 5 years ago, and they start to learning everything from zero. But some people, when they first come to the Box, they already master on something else. But then I always put them to work together with the old team, so they can training each other. So now they have a very equal knowledge on what we are doing.
What's the difference between a good client and a bad client? You must have some kind of war stories or success stories.
So the good client is always they come with a plan. They come with a plan, with a timeline, which is I have 1 or 2 months preparing for everything. They have a good budget with a plan because they have a plan. So that's always a good client, because they have a plan and they come to you from a very beginning. So it means like you are their first choice, and they want to do something serious. And the worst client is they don't have any plan at all. Everything is so rushed, and they come with you when the project is only have like 1 week or 2 weeks left. So it means like you will be their third choice, or maybe because they choose you because only about the money and about the whatever other reason. So that's the worst client, and the ending the our results is always bad. It's mostly bad for that kind of type of person, type of client who come. Yeah.
When you have one of those bad client situations, do you turn them away or do you accept it?
That's also the very nice, very tough question, because sometimes when the client come, they have their reason to become that late. So if that understandable, we're gonna help them, but then we're gonna tell them that with that plan, that would be not the best work for us. We only helping them to follow the deadline. For some clients, the first time they work with us and they having that behavior, we sometimes we say no with the client, but then we say no very politely, and then we tell them that we look forward to working with them in next project if they have better plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Have there been any clients that did come back with a better plan?
Yeah, of course, some of them.
Oh, great. In front of me here is a 2-person Street Fighter V arcade stick. Is this for playing games or is this for your visuals?
Of course, that's for playing games. I love Neo system. I love arcades. When I was a little child, I always went to the game center to play that. But then with this machine, you can have like 4,000 game, and you don't have to insert any coin to it.
Right.
Yeah, so it saves a lot of money.
Is this an all-in-one system here?
All-in-one system.
Oh, really?
You only can need to plug the HDMI cable, and they have a speaker here, and the power, everything.
What are your favorite games?
A Metal Slug.
Okay. Is it MAME then, or what's the emulator running in here?
The emulator built by Chinese.
Okay.
So it's have all the Chinese word there. Of course, that's illegal on some country, because you hack every game. The Nintendo you hack, and the Sega you hack it. But then in Vietnam, so we can easy to use that.
I got one of those. I don't even remember what they called them, but they're like these miniature Super Nintendos or miniature Famicons, and they come with like 20 games on them. I don't know, they were pretty big like a year ago.
Oh yeah.
And
this is a small one.
yeah, it looks the same, but just smaller as the original Nintendo or the original Famicom or Super Famicom or Super Nintendo. But you can update the software running on it to play other
So
systems.
you can hack it, right?
You can hack it pretty easily.
I also have a streak here. My streak is also my favorite game. It's bring me back to video game actually. Yeah. And I heard that you, Thomas, you have the big plan for the streaks back.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And I would love to have one. You better sell me one. I can pay you now.
All right, you got there. That's a good endorsement there. Yeah, the Switch bag. The story behind that was I got my son a Switch for his birthday, and it's a weird shape. It didn't fit any of the bags he had, and I was like, "Do you want to go to the store and look for a bag?" And he said, "No, I want the bag that Papa designs." And then I changed the direction of my company for the next year. We stopped everything we were doing and just tried to develop this bag for my son.
I think that's a cool idea.
I find myself, when I was younger, I had more ideas. I was more creative when I was younger. and I feel that, I don't know, there's something about getting older that makes you more conservative, more, when you're younger and you have an idea for something and somebody says, well, that's never going to work. You're like, screw you. I'm going to show you that it can work. Mm-hmm. But, as you get older, when somebody else presents you an idea, you're like, well, that's not going to work. Because I tried it once and this was the result.
Yeah.
Is that happening to you, or are you able to keep a youthful curiosity and a youthful optimism?
of course, that happened for me. When we aging, our mind is different, our body is different physically, and you have to deal with that. You have to deal with all that changing, and for me, my mind is quite different with my mind 10 years ago. But now I have the a new ability. It's called the focus.
Oh.
Yeah. So in here, because we don't have much time left. So let's say I'm 33 right now, and we all have a sense of we're gonna die in like 30 years, right? We don't have that sense when we in 20. So now when I want to do something, I just want to focus to finish that and to make it the best what I can. And I tried it a couple of times and it's work. So it's not like when I used to have a lot of idea and then do this and do that, changing very fast. But now I want to focus on something and try to finish that. So that's a new ability. Only have when you aging. Yeah.
It's good to have some benefits.
Yeah, that's a good benefit of aging.
What would be an example of something that you want to finish that you may not have had enough focus before to finish?
So let's say somebody what I'm doing for boss is something I want to I want to finish. So when you have a sense you want to finish that, also we have a sense for your aces. Your aces. Like
Your exit?
yeah. Like you have a sense like in next 5 years you're not gonna do that anymore. You're gonna do something else. So we have 5 years to focus on that and then do the most you can for what are you doing. And then after 5 years we change, you do something else. Maybe I'm going to open a restaurant. I'm cooking pho, like serving my friends. Yeah, I'm thinking that way. So I have a feeling of relax. That's the part of my game. I only have 5 years to do that, so I'm gonna do the best I could for box. And also at the same time, like the same with my art things. I have a focus on box for 5 years, and then after 5 years, I'm gonna focus on my art. When you have a sense of aging, you have a clear schedule of what are you doing. It's not happen when you are 20 or 25. It's only start when I 30, and I'm start scheduling what I'm doing, because that's that feeling. So I just decided to sell a part of Box in the last year. So Box now is running a big corporation. It's not a separate studio anymore, but running a bigger corporation. So I have my business partner. They're gonna invest on Box. They're gonna, even direct Box in the direction we are want. So that's less stress for me, and also I can see my aces in next 5 years.
Can you say who bought an interest in Box? Who you partnered with? What the bigger corporation is?
Other corporation is called Endpoint, and that's a half Vietnamese and half international corporation, and they are buying ATV3. They also have Novo Production. They have Amber Stone. They also bought Billboard to Vietnam. Billboard Music Award.
Okay.
Yeah, so that Billboard Vietnam is what belongs to them. And I'm selling Box to that corporation last year.
The podcast I watch the most, the Joe Rogan Experience, they smoke weed and drink whiskey or whatever. I never hear any long periods of silence. In a lot of my interviews, I'll just be like, I wonder what I should ask next. And I just kind of like wait around until I think of it. Or I tell a stupid story like this. But I never hear that in his podcast. Of course, you could edit it out. But I get the sense that they don't, that it's pretty much live. But I edit mine, so it's okay.
And that's the one that Elon Musk is
Yeah, that's the one where
Right.
Elon Musk.
is doing smoking zone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he did it. That's right.
That's pretty cool anyway.
Yeah.
I love that kind of vibe. And I think we are doing pretty good right now.
Yeah,
and,
it's not bad.
we're sharing and the everything.
Do you
Right.
follow anything like Tesla, Elon Musk, or
Uh, I'm not follow that, but then it's all over the news. It's all over the news and follows Elon Musk Twitter. I think that what they are doing is amazing in terms of the direction. Very unique direction, very unique philosophy, and also the presenter is Elon Musk. Is a fun guy, interesting billionaire.
do you know anything about Vinfast?
Oh yeah, and of course I'm Vietnamese,
Yeah.
so the Vinfast they Vin Group, they want to target our our love of the country. So you will love the country. You have to buy our product. Yes, that's why they are trying to tell you. And Vinfast is something similar in terms of the product. I don't think that they have that good. They copy a lot of things, and the inside machine is not. It's not that good. I mean, the engine of the car is not that good. But then they have the back service. When you buy the car, they calling you. They care about what you're doing and support you a lot. So that's what I heard about from my friend, and I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they doing any electric vehicles?
Of course, they're doing electric motorcycle.
Oh. That sounds interesting.
They when you bought one, and then after a week, they calling you. They asking about how you feel about the electric, how you feel about the battery, and if you have only one complaint, they're gonna replace with one full new machine for you. And I think that's a good thing. Yeah, that's a reason for people to buying.
Right. Are those electric bicycles or electric motorbikes?
It's electric motorbike.
Okay.
Yeah.
I met a guy a few months ago who is working for an animation studio that's also owned by Vin Group. The name of that studio, it's kind of escaping me right now, but they did a short animation and their studio is named after like the character of that animation. They're in over by Mastery in District 2.
So they are mostly design studio.
No, like Pixar.
They're like Pixar.
Yeah, like Pixar, but
Is it,
Vietnamese Pixar.
Wow. And they bought by Vingroup.
Started by Vin Group, I think. Wow. Yeah, the president of Vin Group was like, "I want an animation studio," and I guess when that guy wants something, like he gets it.
Nice. That's really interesting too. So they want to in-house everything.
Yeah, I think they've made a couple kids TV shows to this point, but they have bigger aspirations.
Yeah.
Yeah. For our international audience, there is this, what the Japanese would call a zaibatsu, a giant mega corporation called Vin Group, which has Vin Homes, Vinfast, Vin whatever. Any industry you can kind of think of, they have their version of it. They've got their finger in a lot of different industries. A lot of real estate and food and entertainment. I mean,
that Vingroup has become the big thing in Vietnamese society. You know, you live in Vinhome, you go to Vinmart to buying some fruit, and your kids went to Vin school to study, and then you went to Vin Group for working, and then you driving Vinfast car to so it's a whole your life gonna be inside Vin things, Vin's in universe. This happened for a couple of years right now when Vin Group is extending. And also I read some article about the same thing happened in Korea. Samsung. So Samsung is kind of big corporation and they dominate everything in the country. And at the same time it's good for you as a social life, the society, but then at the same time it's affect a lot of smaller vendor, like it's killing a lot of small business vendor, and it's not good for the business in general, because you don't have the variety of business in the country.
One thing that I think is, let's say resilient about Vietnam is, if you look at the one area where this dynamic doesn't seem to be a risk, is coffee and food in Vietnam, like restaurants and cafes. You have McDonald's coming into the country, you have Starbucks coming into the country, but there's still 1,000 independent restaurants and 1,000 independent. I mean, 1,000 is ridiculously small. I mean, there's probably 100,000 independent restaurants and 100,000 independent cafes. Whereas in America, Starbucks has, I think, been a more powerful force in terms of like shutting out other kinds of cafes, but not here. Yeah, and I mean, that's just one arbitrary example, but you could look at Kentucky Fried Chicken or.
So McDonald's, they cannot survive here because there's for example, pho. When you eat that, if you have a feeling of the slow cooking, right? You have the fresh meat, you have the fresh vegetable, and everything is fresh. You can observe the soup, but then the serving is really fast. Like take you 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, or less.
It's like fast food, but at the same time it's slow food. And there's 1,000 of similar kind of.
And the price is good too.
The price is good.
Yeah.
So McDonald's has always been the second choice. So when I go out, I'm hungry, my first choice will be pho or something else. But and the second choice, the third choice may be McDonald's.
Right.
Yeah, because it's near my place, or because I saw that I want something quick, and because they want to accept my credit card, for example. So that's the reason for me to come to McDonald's. Not because it's good, the food is good, or the price is, no.
Yeah, when they first launched, they were certainly popular. They had lines.
They had line, and that because people interested, like, cause they're curious on that kind of food. It's first happened in Vietnam, the kind of service. But then when after half a year, a couple of months, everything is become normal and just becomes their second choice.
You mentioned that the Switch reignited your passion for gaming.
Yeah.
I think it did that for a lot of people, but specifically for you, why was that?
When I want to do playing a video game before stream, right? I have to do a lot of things. I have to insert the disc into my PS4. I have to turn on the PS4. I have to turn on the TV. I have to positioning for the TV and in a good position on the chair or something, and then playing. And then when I finish playing, I have to redo every step again to turn off the system. And sometimes we don't have time to do that, even the little time, right? And then with the streak, it's simple like the power on. You can play everywhere. You can play when you before you go to sleep. You can play in the taxi. You can play when you wait for something. When you wait your wife shopping, and you will play when you when you go to toilet. right? You can play everywhere.
You don't have to apologize for playing games while you go to the toilet.
So it's have a lot. It's have a lot. And of course, the Switch is amazing device. You can play a lot of game on Switch too. You know, it's not only the simple game like the kid game anymore, but it's very much complex game. Like recently, I'm playing The Witcher
Oh, yeah.
on the Switch.
Witcher 3?
Witcher 3.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, like it's a couple of years ago, you only can play that with the decent PC, with a high level machine, you know. But now you can play it on streets. The visual is stunning. Yeah, so it's helped me to do a lot of maximize my time to video game. And yeah, this is bring my love back to video games that way.
Do you normally play it handheld or do you normally play it on a screen?
Oh,
Like a-
so when I'm playing on the screen is when I want to play with my friends. We see on the big screen, so that's why we dub it.
yeah.
But then mostly I'm playing handheld.
I see.
Yeah.
I found for certain games, especially action adventure games, so let's say Breath of the Wild, Zelda, Breath of the Wild,
Wow, my favorites.
I found that game to be much better on the docked and on the TV than handheld. Like your character is just a little too small when it's in the handheld mode. I mean, it takes up the same portion of the screen real estate, but you know, just in terms of physical size, he's quite small. The other thing was my Switch is one of the many that has suffered from controller drift, where the analog sticks register an input, let's say left or whatever direction, even though you're not touching it. And in a game like Zelda, where you're doing some platform puzzles, that could definitely kill you.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So I ended up getting a pro controller and you know, playing it on the TV. I found that to be a better experience for me, but certainly the versatility of being able to have the freedom of playing it handheld or on the TV is nice. How have you felt about the Switch Lite, which only you can play handheld? You know, like Switch Lite, you can't dock it and play it on the TV.
The Switch Lite, the new one,
Right.
I think definitely it's for the piece, it's for the person like me. You know, I buy Switch because I want to play in handheld experience. Of course, the Lite one would be designed better when you play in handheld for a long time. I mean, that's the Switch I have is the first generation, and it's not designed well for, you know, you holding it for a long time, you're gonna tire your hand. And at the same time, is I don't need to, you know, unplug the controller, so I just want to keep it there. So that's why the Lite is for the person like me. Yeah.
Cool. The thing I've been playing the most recently is Fortnite.
Yeah.
And my son plays it on the Switch, and I play it on my editing PC. And then
Yeah, so you can play together
we
in
can
the same
play-
server.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Nice.
which is great.
That's even funnier.
Yeah. The other game you can do that with is Fantasy Strike by my friend David Serlin.
Never. Don't play
You
that
can
game.
cross play between PS4, Switch, and PC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's another good one.
So I have I just finished the Divinity original scenes. So that game will look like Diablo, but it's not. It's much deeper than that. So you can play in the street, you save it, and then you can link directly to your Steam account, and then you can play in the PC later, and back and forth.
Oh, that's
So
great.
it's really nice. Like on the street, the screen is small, and then the visual is downgrade, you know. But when you move back to city, everything is much better. So you can, you know, spending time for the important level on the PC, but then the less important thing on the street, like when you want to, you know, farming, to do something side quest or something.
Do you have any ideas for how to incorporate your kind of art style into a novel video game experience? Like, Do you think that a game could be built around your style of art?
I think it's good. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, like, if it has a video game like that, I definitely buy it. It's not because it's my art style, but also I think it's for visually it's stunning. It can be bringing you a different experience. That's why recently I'm working on Unreal Engines, which is a real-time engine software. But at the same time, we can help you to design in game. I hopefully with I can do something about it. I can do something with Unreal Engine very soon. I think this year I want to create my experience game.
Have you ever messed around with Unity?
So Unity is also it's one of my first choice. But then, if you want to do something with Unity, you have to study. You have to. I mean, like, we have to really focus on studying because Unity is a building everything very deep, and you need to know a little bit of programming to help you to understand Unity. But Unreal is I think easier for me because I don't have a programming background, and Unreal Engine they have everything. It's a drag and drop, and then just link it in the way you want. So it's better for me as a visual artist to start with Unreal first, and then if you want to do something more deeper, you can move to Unity.
That's kind of funny because I was always under the impression that people's impression was the reverse of that Unity was a little bit more drag and drop, but if you wanted to be more serious, you would use Unreal.
Really?
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe these things have changed. I used to work for Unity. Full disclosure, and I've never used Unreal, so I actually, my perspective is going to be a little jaded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly, I think in the past, Unreal was known for their visual shader editor and as well as their visual gameplay scripting. They used to have a system called Kismet, and I think now it's called Blueprint. I don't know if it's the same thing or a different thing, but when you're creating interactions using Unreal, like what kind of systems do you use in it?
I just started with Unreal recently, so it's a blueprint, and it's a drag and drop system. You can change the value, everything is blueprint. But then if you want to getting deeper in Unreal, they also have a way for you to do that, and they also allow you to program in Python.
Python. Yeah.
For me, it's the reason I choose Unreal is also because I want to do something a very short motion graphic from Unreal, and they providing a lot of assets, a lot of city scenes, a lot of model, the drop it there, frame keyframe the motion, and then we're done.
Quickly give us a rundown of the types of software that you use. That Box uses day to day or project to project.
So of course we still using the Adobe softwares like After Effects, Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere. But then we also use on a different software like Unreal Engines to do some motion graphic or to do some interactive. And also we are using Xmode, which is a real-time 3D visualization software. It's come from France. It's just they just finished a beta about 3 years ago, and
X mode.
S like the S of the Vietnamese. S
like snake.
like snake. Yeah.
Okay.
S mode. And another software is Not. It's not VFX. It's also the 3D visualizing software, but mostly they build it for a light show experience, and also you can do VR and AR content on that. That's all.
Thank you for spending
Yeah.
time to talk with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Thomas.
If people would like to learn more about Box, they can go to theboxcollective.tv.
Correct.
Or they can search the hashtag
Box visual.
Box Visual or Box Visuals on Instagram.
Just checking around with that. Box visual or box visual with S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an account, or you just use your personal account for your Instagram?
I use box account. Yeah. The S is the Box Creative Vietnam.
At the Box Collective Vietnam.
Yeah, you can search on Google, and then the first result is gonna be our page.
Wait, creative or collective?
Collective.
You can search for one. If you don't find it, search for the other.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for. The first time to doing that.